Hello everyone, welcome to another topic from Human Resource Management. Today we will discuss the topic Human Resource Planning. So in this video we will see what is Human Resource Planning, the concept, and the process of Human Resource Planning in detail. As we know, human resource is a very important asset of an organization. So if an organization wants to meet their objectives, they should have excellent pool of or the right pool of human resources or employees in their organization. So in order to have a right employees or right qualified set of employees, human resource planning is very essential. So let us examine what is human resource planning by a definition. Human resource planning is we call it as a process of getting right number of qualified people into right job for the right time. So three things are important here: right number of people, okay, right job, and right time. So three things are important. So let's say one organization planning an expansion process, just say 2022 next year, by the beginning of financial year 2022, one organization is planning to expand. So the right time is important. So before the financial year begins, so they had to get so-called what are required number of employees, additional number of employees. So that is very important. Right time is important. So those set of employees has to be hired, or that has to be uh, selected for the right job. So let's say, for example, sales job, marketing job, or financial analysis, various job roles are there. So right job they have to be identified. So right number of people also. Now right number of quantity is also important. For example, they need 20 salespersons. We need to get 22 salespersons. So that right number is also important. So this is actually the process of this entire process. We call it as human resource planning. So once again, it is a process of getting right number of qualified people into right job for right time, so that organization can meet their objectives. Okay. So when you talk about human resource planning, it is actually a forward-looking function. It try to assess human resource requirement by keeping many things in advance. So they have to see the market fluctuations. Sometimes they have to look for demand forecast, and again production depends upon, suppose, all these strategic plans of the organization. Everything depends, everything influences or depends this human resource planning process. So everything have a direct impact on this process. So we call it as human resource planning as a forward looking function. So let us see the process in brief. Four-step process. The first step is forecast the demand of HR, human resource, or employees. So the first step is forecast the demand. Okay. So the demand, you calculate the demand is the first step. And second one is you have to prepare manpower inventory. Basically, you are talking about here is about supply. First one is about demand, and second one is about supply. So how much you can provide? So that is the second one, preparing. This is the demand, and then there is supply. What is availability? What is your availability? That is second. Supply is second one. And of course, then you go for supply minus demand minus supply minus demand. We go for the gap. Okay, you are finding out the gap. Sometimes there will be more supply. Sometimes there will be less supply. Oh, that can be vary. So based on that, we have to plan the our HR plan, or your other strategic plan. And next process is your plan. So this is the in brief the human resource planning. You start with demand forecasting, then you have to understand supply, how much you are in hand. Then there is a gap. If there is excess, or if there is less, surplus or deficit, then you have to go for the planning process. So these are the four simple steps. Let us see these four steps in detail. We take the first step, that is forecast the demand. How we can forecast the demand for human resource? Let's say you are thinking for next 1 year, next one financial year, next one financial year, and demand, the forecasting demand will be based on a few things. That is, one is organization plans. So as I said in the beginning, that if say organization planning to expand, so of course that is, you may require more human resources, more employees. Okay, suppose an organization currently working only in South India, they are planning to expand into North India and other is Western India and Northeast, etc. So of course you will have, they are planning to open more branches. Of course they may need or they need more employees. So organization plans are very important. Again, other strategic plans, like if they go for acquisition, they go merger or acquisition, everything is important. Again, if they planning to introduce new product in the market, oh, these things are very significant. It can be opposite also. Sometimes they may plan to reduce their employee strength, so that also can influence the demand. Again, all this political, economical, technology, social situation can have a direct impact. So now COVID-19 period. So that is actually a kind of it has an economical impact, a social impact, a social situation that is. So again, this employee demand varies from sector to sector. Some sector has very has a high requirement of employees. Some sector they are cutting down their employee strength. So again, economical strength. So a very good example is that when financial crisis come, many employers are cutting down their employee strength. So similarly, all these are very all these can have a huge impact on the demand for human resource. Again, a workforce factor, workforce availability, and workforce related factors also are very important. So these are the few things that actually can have a direct influence on forecasting the demand of human resource. Again, competition of company also competition is also another factor. So when you have companies having competitive very having a very highly competitive environment, so their demand for human resource also varies. So all these factors can have a direct impact on human resource on forecasting of demand for human resource. So that is the first step. We have to forecast the demand. Okay. So when you forecast a demand, the next process is, of course, you have to find out the supply. You have to find out the supply. To find out the supply, how much you have in hand. How much you have in hand means this happens in two ways. That is, first one is this is a process where you have to find out the size and quality of your human resource available. So size as well as quality is important. Whether you are not only the quantity is important, quality is also important. Okay. Yeah, it can happen in two ways. That is internal level supply as well as external level supply. So you will check whether how much you have in hand inside the organization. As per when you plan the demand, whether you have sufficient supply of employees, supply of human resource as per the demand within the organization. That is the internal level supply, and external level supply also we have to check. So whether we can, if you do not have it from internally, whether we go for external level market or external level supply. So here we are more focusing on to internal level supply. So that is very essential, very critical. So let us examine what is internal level supply all about. So internal level supply means we are trying to understand or trying to calculate or estimate your internal labor supply for another 1 year. Okay, so how much employee will remain in your organization when at the end of this particular financial year or the beginning of next financial year. So that is what we basically all about internal labor supply. When you talk about internal labor supply, we have four important methods to analyze or to estimate the internal labor supply. First one we call it the staffing table. Second one is called a Markov analysis. Third is skill inventory, and fourth is the replacement chart. Okay, all these four techniques are used to understand internal labor supply. These are we call internal labor supply forecasting technique. This will help you to understand the internal supply. Okay, how much employees will remain in the organization? What will be our employee strength in terms of quantity as well as quality? Maybe if you're planning for a year, end of the next year or beginning of the next financial year, etc. So that is what we need to understand by internal supply forecasting. All these four techniques will help you in internal forecasting or understanding your internal labor supply. Internal labor supply. Okay, so let us see one after another. First one is staffing table. Okay, here remember we are understanding the employee strength in terms of quality as well as quantity, in terms of number as well as in terms of quality. We have to understand the employee strength. Okay, staffing table is simply it's a table that shows the number of employees in each job. Suppose the organization has suppose just say they have around 40 different job profiles. Okay, so how many employees are there in each job profile? How many sales managers? How many assistant sales managers? How many what do you call accounts? How many senior accountants are there? So in every job profile, how many employees are there? That is what basically job staffing table all about. It's also try to understand or classify employees based on their age, sex, position, and category, experience, and qualification, skills, etc. So that we can easily understand whether there is any a gap. Okay, whether we have sufficient employees in our hand or not. So staffing table is actually an important tool. So basically this is actually a demographic picturization of your employee strength in each each department or in each job profile, how many employees are there, how many employees are there running quality wise, and again they can have classification based on their age. Okay, can be classification based on their gender or sex, or classification based on their experience in terms how many are there with experience higher than 5 years or between 3 to 5 or less than 3 years, etc. So it's basically a detailed profiling of your employees. That is what a staffing table all about. Staffing table will give you an excellent idea about your internal employee strength. Next one is Markov analysis. This is a very important tool. So let us examine a table like this. Markov analysis is actually using what do you call your historical data to predict your future employee strength. Just say an organization in a department, there are 3 different job roles. That is, manager is one job role, supervisor is another job role, and line worker is another job role. Okay. So what you are given is this is for estimation for another 1 year of estimation. So you are trying to estimate or you are trying to calculate how many employees will be in each job role at the end of the year. So that is what we are trying to understand in this job in Markov analysis. Just say right now the organization had 10 managers. Okay, so based on the previous historic data, I understand that the probability to a manager to leave an organization, that is what you remember, exit, okay, or a manager to leave an organization is 20%. So which means out of 10 employees, 10 managers, 2 or 20% of them, or 2 employees, 2 managers may leave the organization by the end of the next year, by the end of the year or within 1 year. So that is the calculation. This calculation comes based on their historic data. So the historic trend they are predicting based on historic trend. Let us take another. When you come down, let's say line workers, 100 line workers are given in the organization. The organization have 100 line workers. Okay. So again, based on the previous data, they say that 20% of the line workers may leave the organization end of the year. Okay, so that is the based on the historic data they are having that prediction. That is probability is 0.2 and 20% they will leave. So which means 20 line workers may leave the organization. Okay, so again, next possibility is that how many line worker may get promoted as a manager. So that is actually impossible event. So they are giving 0 as the possibility or probability because it such a thing didn't happen in the organization in past. So there is no possibility of a line worker directly getting promoted to a manager. So we are keeping that is a 0. Again, how many line worker can get promoted to supervisor? That is important. So based on their historic data, they are saying that 20% it is or 0.2 it is, which means out of 100, 20 line workers may get promoted as supervisor. So that they are giving at the end of the year 20 out of 100 existing line worker may get promoted as supervisor. So that is why we are giving it as 20 here. Okay, because that is 0.2 or 20% is the predicted probability. Again, the predicted probability the line worker remain as a line worker even after a year is 60% or 0.6, which means out of 100, 60 line workers will remain in the same job role, either without getting a promotion or without leaving the organization. They will remain as line worker in the line. They will remain as the status of line worker. Okay, so this is the predicted probability table or Markov analysis table for a line worker. Again, if you come to here in again supervisor, same way 20 supervisor are there. Out of that 2 may leave the organization, that is because that is 10% their estimated probability, and 10%, so that which means 2 out of 20 supervisor may get promoted as a manager, and remaining other 16 supervisor will remain in the organization as the same role. Okay, so this is the estimated thing. So when you if you think about entire process, so what is our availability? If you want to estimate our availability of future availability of or future supply of a manager role, so we have to calculate like this. So when you calculate like this, our for next 1 year, our estimated supply in the role of manager is 8 plus 2, that is 10. So that is 10. That is the estimated calculation for your supply. So that will be our estimated supply calculation for a manager. Similarly, estimated supply calculation for a supervisor will be again here what you are saying that 16 supervisor will remain as supervisor, and there are chance that 20 may get promoted as promoted as supervisor. 20 line worker may get it as line workers may get promoted as supervisor. So which means their possibilities, our availability is 36 is our availability. So this is a hypothetical situation. So this number you cannot match up with the number with reality. This is a very purely hypothetical situation. Okay. Again, when you consider line worker, actually line worker, the thing is that actually for another next year, so line worker will be only 60 line worker your available will be 60 line worker availability for predicted for next 1 year is 60. So this is line worker scenario line worker. Okay, so that is what we call it as Markov analysis. Okay. And so briefing about future availability in a workforce is estimated based on historic data, promotion, transfer, etc. Based on the past probability number, employees in various positions are estimated. So employees in various positions are estimated based on the past probabilities. That is what we are done in Markov analysis. Okay. So let us see the next one, that is skill inventory. Basically, skill inventory is an assessment of, it's again a kind of profiling of your employees. Actually, it gives an idea about the knowledge, skill, and abilities of employees, their experienced employees, their career aspiration employees, etc. So similar to staffing table, and again, it is something which we have to update in every 2 years. So basically, it has an emphasis, more emphasis on skill inventory, where we give importance to KSA aspect, knowledge, skill, and ability aspect of an employees, and a detailed experience as well as career aspirations are listed in a skill inventory. So skill inventory is we call it as another important method. That is a third method of supply forecasting. So skill inventory is also very important. This is the third method of supply forecasting. And another method of supply forecasting is a fourth method of supply forecasting is replacement chart. Replacement chart is when your organization, it's a profile of job holders department wise, offers a snapshot of who will replace whom if there is a job opening. Just say one example, if suppose in this example Jay Smith, vice president marketing, suppose this person is leaving the organization, who will replace Jay Smith? So there are three possibilities as per that. One is sales director can replace, or production manager can replace, or director of marketing can replace this the Jay Smith, the existing or the vice president of marketing. So in replacement chart talks about who will replace whom in their position. So that is what a replacement chart all about. So replacement chart also gives a very good idea about internal labor supply. How many of you are there ready? How many of you are there to replace an existing role? Okay, this is very important. So these are the four different techniques we use to understand internal labor supply. External labor supply also similarly we can understand from the external market. We understand how much employee there to they're in supply. So again external supply is very bit difficult to calculate, but still we can have a kind of idea about that. So after that, after finding out the demand and supply, the next process is we have to understand the gap. We have demand minus supply, whether we have to calculate whether there is a deficit or there is a surplus, or there is a is there in more employees, is there more supply, or is there a demand is more? Is there more supply, or you have supply is less? So that is what we are trying to understand. Okay, if your supply is less, of course we have to plan for hiring, etc. If your supply is more, then again you have to have different plan. Again here you have to, when you talk about gap, you have to think about qualitative gap as well as quantitative gap. So that are important. Quantitative gaps in terms of number, qualitative gap in terms of efficiency, or in terms of knowledge level or skill level, etc. So both these gap in workforce you have to identify. After identifying the gap, next process you have to plan HR plan. You have to formulate the HR plan based on the gap. So the first one will be recruitment plan. Recruitment plan, if there is suppose if your supply is less, and you have more demand, then of course you need to have more employees to be hired. So recruitment plan is important. Again redeployment plan is very important. So it indicates a chance of transferring or retaining your existing employees for new jobs. So that is redeployment. So how we can utilize your existing employees in the future job roles, okay, whether they can give the promotion or whether they can give transfer, etc. So that is basically we think about redeployment plan. Again, redundancy plan is also very important. Redundancy plan is important. Sometimes, as that organization has to cut down their employee strength, So maybe they have to plan few redundancy plan. They have to think for retrenchment, layoff, or we have often heard of something called golden shake and etc. So where actually they are reducing the number of employee strength. So reducing employee strength is also in some cases, we suppose if you have excess of employees, your surplus employees, if you have more employees than they are actually required. So your organization may cut down their employee strength by various processes such as layoff or retrenchment, or also called golden handshake, etc. So all this process actually, in this process actually, we are reducing the number of employee strength. And finally, training plan. Training plan is also very important. Suppose just say you find a qualitative gap. You find a gap in terms of, not in terms of quantity. Basically, you find a gap in terms of skill or knowledge, etc., which is a trainable aspect. You need to hire, or you need to add your strengthen your employees, or you need to improve your quantity of employees, or you need not to hire anyone. You can strengthen your existing employees by giving training. Maybe you give them more training and improve their skill set, or improve their knowledge, etc., ability, improve knowledge, KSA aspect, etc. So that is also another plan. So if you find a qualitative gap, we have more focus with training. So these are the various HR plan we have to decide based on the gap you are found out after doing the surplus or demand forecasting. Okay. And so basically these four stages makes human resource planning all about. You have to find out supply, you have to find out demand, then you have to find out the gap, and finally you have to formulate the HR plan. Okay. So in quickly, if you look into the advantages of human resource planning, actually it prepare employee for the future, and it actually supply a pool of talent. It helps in expansion. It minimizes the loss due to labor turnover. So suppose, for example, if you are a lot of employees are moving from your organization, they are moving out from your organization, they are moving to another, you are getting a transfer, or they are resigning from your organizations. If there are movement of organization, external movement of organization is there. So in that cases, we can have, if you have proper planning, or we have proper prediction of that the so-called employees of this much number of employees may leave the organization, or they may get to move to another profile, etc. We can reduce the loss due to turnover. So we should not affect our process or production process or marketing or sales process. So if an organization, when somebody leaves the organization, immediately we can replace the person, so that our entire process won't get affected. So again, every changes, it helps in changes. So the organization changes, etc. It is very important. And finally, improve the quality of recruitment. So quality of recruitment is highly depends upon the quality of the planning we do. So actually recruitment actually a result of HRP. So a proper HRP process is very important. HRP is important for a good or a smooth recruitment process. Okay. And finally, of course it has certain constraints. It is a future activity, so that uncertainty is inevitable. Inaccuracy because human error or unpredictability is a nature, so inaccuracy is part of that. So sometimes we may face or lack of support from management. Again, resistance from employees is part of that. So even though this HRP has so and so constraints, this HRP is very important. So because planning makes the foundation, so it makes the foundation for the recruitment, selection, and so on the process. So HRP is very important in our organization. So thank you. We'll see you in another video.